All right. We have Zach Mobius here with us, who is the founder of, is it Duxata or
Yep,
Dexata?
Dexata. Yep.
Duxata, I believe it's a software company, and he's working to revolutionize the strength coaching industry. I see Franz on here. Franz is in a similar area with his own app, and yeah, Zach is formerly employed with Uber. He's got really big traps, as you can see, so that's a plus as well. I'm don't know a ton about his backstory, but looking forward to hearing his take on productivity and what he can bring to us. So thanks for being here, Zach.
Cool. I appreciate it, Max. Let me go ahead and share out and we'll get this going. Normally how I do these is we'll kind of go through and just kind of take questions as we go. If you have anything, just kind of throw your hand up. We can discuss it. I feel like that keeps things moving pretty well. We'll jump into the backstory a little bit, but go ahead and present. Going to share some new stuff that I haven't talked about anywhere else on how to be more productive, how to get your product right, and really how to promote. So I call this the business barbell. You guys will see in a second. And it's really my take on how to optimize productivity, product, and promotion, which are the really three key drivers of building a successful company.
I think I'm
So
gonna watch this first.
I think somebody's going.
Yeah, sorry about
that. You're good. So I am Zach Mobius, formerly led projects for global strategy at Uber Eats. This was everything from launching products in new parts of the world to taking things that were working in one part of the world and scaling them to other places. When I was doing this, also helped Uber close $500 million in enterprise deals. And this will really go into the data-driven marketing side of like, how do you sell with numbers and how do you understand the impact that your product has to make it a lot easier for you to scale your business. While I was at Uber, I did two things. One, I started an online fitness coaching business. Back in 2003, I almost died from viral meningitis. So seized, coded, brought back with the defibrillators. I think my mother is permanently traumatized. But after that event, I really had a much bigger appreciation for health, both my own health and how I could help other people maintain their health so they could have a second chance at life, just like I did. And when I was going through how best to do this, I looked at being a doctor because my wife is a doctor, and 10 years of school and residency and training didn't sit super well with me on making the impact that I wanted to immediately. So I started fitness coaching. And when I started fitness coaching, I realized that there were really good coaches that just didn't have the tools to reach more people. And I looked at what we were doing at Uber and how we could scale so quickly and wanted to take those exact same approaches and put them in the hands of people to help other people become healthy. And that's why I found Dexata, which is my software company that really helps coaches turn client results into referrals. Because I think the fastest way to grow your business is to create a great product that sells itself and then to turn those into referrals for your business so you can grow exponentially. So before we kind of kick this off, this over here, I just wanted to quickly define productivity as I see it to make sure we are all kind of on the same page. So productivity in its simplest definition is the measure of outputs versus inputs. So for what you put in, how much do you get out? And you can really think about this across the resources that you spend. So your time, your attention, your money, and your labor. You want to ensure that whatever you're doing in your life, you are getting the maximal return on those, and that you're structuring the way you think and optimizing your return on those things based on the levers that you pull. So the goal of this presentation is really how do you maximize your inputs versus your outputs in the three key areas of entrepreneurship. So to make this a little bit clearer, I hate when it does this. There we go. I kind of broke business down into what I consider a barbell approach. So if you're familiar with investing at all, there's a barbell strategy to investing. And what it basically says is like, rather than split your focus on a bunch of different things, take two things that you can really focus on. And like, those are the linchpins of everything else. And like the middle line is really that basis. So if you think about your entrepreneurship, you can take the same approach. You want to focus on really three things: your productivity, which is like what all this sits on. So like how well you can deliver personally, your energy, your drive, your focus, your motivation. And then from a business standpoint, you need to put all your focus on your product. So what you do to provide value and give people results. And then your promotion. How do you tell people about the results that you're getting? If you can do those two things, then sales becomes a through line to that, where you are just educating people on, is this a good fit for you? And are you going to benefit from the solution that we have? So before we kind of jump in, that kind of clear with everyone? Ready to rock? Any questions before we hop on? Sweet. So when you break this down, we're going to cover productivity first. There we go. So I think the easiest way to optimize your productivity is actually to optimize yourself. So how do you improve what you're doing from a health standpoint to ensure that your outputs are consistent? So the fastest way to improve productivity is to measure really three things, which is energy, drive, and focus. So your decisions with your lifestyle, your training, your diet should all be based around how they impact these three metrics. Because if you are the entrepreneur who can function at a very high level, then everything else can grow exponentially. But like if you are up or down, the business is just going to be a reflection of that. So like you have to master yourself before anything else. Because this is going to go into how well you can concentrate, how motivated you feel. And those are really dependent on your lifestyle. Like if you are dialed in, and I'm sure everyone on this call has had a point in life where like training was on point, nutrition was on point, sleep was on point, stress recovery, relationships felt good, and you were crushing in your business. And then I'm sure like we've all had the opposite of that, where it was stressful, there was a ton going on, we kind of let habits slip, and you just weren't as productive as you could be. Or like if you go out and drink for like a day or two, and the amount of recovery that it takes on you. So like same person, same business, same thing, but how you are treating your body dictates how motivated you feel and if you want to get up and crush work. Or if you just drank for 2 days and Monday and Tuesday, you're just like not feeling it, your digestion's kind of shitty, and like you just don't have the same drive and vigor as you would. So I know all of you guys are pretty dialed in because you're part of Uncom, but I would kind of challenge you with this is track your energy, your focus, and your drive, and see how your training, your diet, and your lifestyle habits fit with those. Different people have different things that work best. And it's really easy just to adopt what should be a really good approach, like low carb in the mornings. Like a lot of people feel really good when they eat no carbs, just like meat and fat, can power through the day. I've found when I track this, I do a lot better when I have a pretty balanced breakfast. Even 50, 60 grams of carbs can power through the morning significantly more, and my focus is more on point. So like measure this stuff and don't just take dogma into account. On the next step, so like now that you got yourself squared away, I think the biggest thing you need to look at if you want to be productive is like your strategy. And strategy means choice, and it's a prioritization of how you allocate your resources. So that attention, the time, money, and labor, where are you putting those things, and what is going to give you the greatest impact with that? With this, you want to create a real construct of what to say yes to and what to say no to, just to make it easier on yourself. If you have to question every time an opportunity pops up, should I do this or should I not do this? You're going to waste a lot of your mental bandwidth on those small decisions, and that's going to take away from the big picture. You want to answer the questions of like, what is your business doing? What does it not do? Who do you help and who do you not help? And how do you help those people? Because if you can answer those questions, it's going to make it really easy to understand, okay, in growing the business, here's what we need to focus on. And then in personal opportunities, when something pops up, does it align with the direction I want to go? Yes or no? And should I take it? The default answer for a lot of this should be no, if you've got a well-crafted strategy. And I think this is epitomized most, I hate when it does this. There we go. I think this is epitomized most by this tweet by Naval. In an age of infinite leverage, judgment is the most important skill. And I think on the productivity standpoint, we can really get caught up in the hacks, the fixes, the tools, the second brains, the everything that like provide a lot of structure, context, and value. But the biggest tool you can have is your ability to judge if something's going to move you towards your goal, yes or no, on a micro and a macro scale. So with this, I think the most important thing you could do as an entrepreneur is make sure you're picking the right opportunity to ensure that what you can do and the value you deliver is aligned with where you're going. So easy questions to answer for this is, what can you confidently deliver? Who's the solution most valuable to? And how does this interact with your personal and subjective interests? So what problems do you uniquely want to solve? Like when you can start to answer these questions, it allows you to figure out what you should be working on. And I think the third one is one of the most important questions, because somebody can be really skilled at helping certain people, but if they have a certain proclivity to health, to wellness, to sleep, to behavior, trauma, etc., they could be more drawn to that, and they could be like more skilled to do that. So with this, I kind of want you guys after this to understand like, what opportunity are you pursuing right now, and is it the right one for you? Because like your opportunity and what you're driving towards is the biggest thing that's going to dictate if you're getting the maximal return on your time or not. And with this, I think you can break personal productivity down in a much simpler form. So I like to look at it in two kind of like aspects of what is the impact of what we're doing and how much effort does it take. So if you can look at things just through this lens, it's a lot easier to figure out. You've kind of like narrowed down your strategy. You understand what you're working on. And then from a more micro perspective, so day to day, week to week, what should you work on to get there? Like the impact is really when you look at what you're measuring. So North Star metric for a business would be revenue. So like, how likely will this improve my revenue? Yes or no? And then how hard do I think it's going to be? If you can bucket out your tasks in those lists, it's really easy to stack rank them in a way that says, okay, like we're just going to focus on the highly impactful things that are pretty easy to do. And when that list runs out, then we can move on to like medium and longer term things and start to break them up. This is exactly how I prioritize software development as well, of what features are going to have the biggest impact on users and how long do I think it's going to take us to deliver those. So the last part of this productivity standpoint is building momentum and removing doubt. So I think what screws a lot of people is the kind of like the three big ones of overthinking, overanalyzing, but really a lack of trust. And what causes that is you try to take on projects or things that are too big for your current skill level to handle, and you start to get frustrated and you start to also like not be able to deliver. So when you stack things, we kind of went over impact versus effort. The next thing you want to focus on is how do you ensure that you're doing things in a way that sequences them to build momentum, to where you're biting off the right kind of pieces. And like every day, every week, you're getting the things done that are moving you toward your goals. And you're really stacking up momentum to do that. Because like if you're doing that, you'll constantly take on bigger and bigger things. And it's like being in the weight room where you're just trying to progressively overload yourself like one day at a time. But if you go in and you've never squatted before, you load 405 and you crush yourself, like I doubt you're going to want to squat again for a while. So that is the productivity portion of this. Any questions before we move on to product?
Yes, hey, I had a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
You said, like, for example, in the beginning, you were tracking like what you eat to determine what's most effective for you. How are you doing that?
So I'd like in part of our software, we measure subjective metrics, so energy, focus, motivation. That's how I do it. I'm coming out with a B2C software later this year to do that. Easiest way to do it would just be take a notebook, break your meals out. So like breakfast, lunch, pre-workout, post-workout, and then just rate yourself on a 1 through 10 scale of like, what was your energy like after that? What was your focus like after that? How driven were you after that? Like you'll start to be able to pick up patterns of one, like what was that meal composition like? Two, were there any things in there that like, there was a time where I crapped ton of dairy and I just felt like shit afterwards. And you start to pick up those trends. And then three, like meal size is a big one for me as well. Of like, if I ate like really big meals, I just like wasn't as driven and focused afterwards. So super simple way to like start tracking that. And then you can scale up from there.
Could I ask as well?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Do you have any high leverage tools or tricks that you found that worked for you that you think might improve drive, motivation, focus, that might be crossover for other people?
Yeah, so I think the big ones are going to be the simple ones. One is going to be getting sunlight and movement in the morning. So I think Andrew Huberman has talked a lot about this, but like getting those like 10, 20 minutes of sunlight like the morning really helps my mood and drive throughout the day. Another big one that I found is starting to do like more walking or movement throughout the day and just going kind of like brain dumping and talking to myself. I tend to be more of a verbal learner and verbal creator. So rather than doing things that were just behind a desk where I had to like force myself, I will go out and walk and dump ideas. And I think it's been a nice like kind of mix for me because I was somebody who thought you had to be like working all the time to be productive. And then I've found like the more I balance the creativity and productivity aspect, which are really like two sides of a different spectrum, the more productive I've been. And then number three has been, I think you commented on like when I post, like having blocks of deep work where you're just focused on one thing. Like the times where I have been most productive, I have had a medium-sized to big project, and I've just been focused on that. Like we built the client side of our app in 2 weeks because every day for the first 4 hours of the day, I just woke up and focused on that. And when you have those big projects stretched out over a longer period of time, I found by like day 3 or 4, I was hitting a pretty good flow state because I knew exactly what I had to work on. I knew I was making progress towards something that was meaningful to me, and I could stack those wins day to day. Cool.
Hey, Zach, one quick thing. You mentioned verbal learning. So how do you feel that this is like an inborn thing, that each of us has a natural way that we learn better, like maybe an audio learner, or how do you go about that?
Yeah, so I think everyone's going to have a natural proclivity, and I'm not a psychologist, I don't know if it's more like nurture versus nature, but I think trying to figure out which ways you learn best, which ways you create best, can go a really long way. And just like the focus and drive, I would experiment. So if you kind of break it down to like verbal or auditory, written, or like visual, or like kinesthetic being the big ones, just try for your next like project or creative endeavor what feels best to you. So like I can come up with a lot of ideas, and I do a lot of my content on walks because I just like talk my ideas out loud, and then I'll come back and edit them. If you were trying to figure out if you were more visual or auditory, like try to like draw pictures and see like, do you come up with better ideas? Do you do more stuff that way? For the kinesthetic, I don't know how I would solve that. Maybe like something you could like touch or feel, or like go do movement, or like be in the gym or do something like that and try to figure things out that way, and try to feel like if you're more inclined to creating, problem solving, doing different stuff like that. So I think just like test what works for you, and don't feel like you have to be locked in. Because I thought I had to read books for a long time, and like that was the way you learn stuff, where I can remember stuff 2, 3, 4x better if I listen to it.
So kinesthetic is like moving as well. So it could just be the fact that you're walking is kind of like kinesthetic as well.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Keep going.
No worries. Any more questions on productivity, and we'll go to product. Sweet. So product is probably my favorite thing in the world. I didn't earmark, so like each of these slides probably could have been its own presentation, but with product especially, we slimmed it down so I could do more of the promotion side. But the biggest thing you want to focus on when you have a good product is understanding how do you add value to a customer. Like business in its simplest sense is the exchange of resources. So somebody's money, time, attention, or labor for something of value to them. Could be information, could be a physical good, could be an experience, really whatever you're offering in exchange for whatever they have. So to do this, really simple way to do it is 1, identify a problem. So what is a problem that somebody else has that you can solve or deliver on? Number 2, kind of on the back of that, is create a solution. And the biggest thing within this is like define the outcome of that. If it's outcome twice, that's wrong. Define a specified outcome. So like there's a lot of ways you could solve something. How do you uniquely solve that in a way that like you can deliver on that? Number 3 is choose a way to measure the effectiveness of this. This is probably the biggest thing that I see a lot of people miss is 1, their outcome's not specific enough. And this was a mistake that we made with Texada early on. Like we said, like we help coaches like manage their clients better and save time. And what happened was it opened us up to a ton of different feedback areas that made it harder to grow the product. Because rather than saying that like we help coaches turn results into referrals, or we help coaches get clients results to grow their business, very specified outcome, we said that we did all these things. So what happened is, why doesn't your product do this? Why doesn't it do that? Why does it do that? And you start getting compared to everyone else in the market, and it makes it a lot harder for you to deliver and differentiate. So choose your specified outcome, and then choose a way to measure it. So like the way to measure it's really important. We'll get into it in promotion, data-driven marketing. You need to be clear on how to measure it. So you can say like, what I'm doing is a success or failure. But you also need to be clear on how to measure is like when you sit down with a client, with a customer, are they achieving the results they want based on why they came to your business for you? Like if I hire a fitness coach, really good example, and I'm not clear on like what my outcome is, it makes it harder for the coach to deliver as well. Am I losing fat? Am I building muscle? Am I trying to get faster? Do I want to play professional sport? Like all of these things are in the realm of a coach, but you need to figure out what you're really good at and how to speak to that. And then number 4, I think is the biggest one, is iterate on solutions to make the product more valuable. I think you only need as many people into your business initially as it takes to get this wheel spinning and get feedback. So like, what's the problem you're working on? What's the solution you're solving? How do you measure that solution? And then how are you using the measurement in step 3 to iterate on solutions to make it better? So did it solve the problem? How fast did it solve the problem? And then how much effort was involved in solving the problem? These are all things you can measure to try to improve it. So number 2, and this could be the most important slide or second most important slide in the presentation, is why customers leave and how to keep them longer. So I've done more research on churn than anyone else that I know at Uber. And my stance on churn is customers churn because they no longer perceive value, perceive progress towards their goal and a way they want to make it. So if you flip that statement, customers will continue to stay with you as long as they perceive progress towards their desired result in a way they want to make it. So perceived progress, desired outcome, way they want to do it. And I can't stress enough, and I messed it up earlier on in business, the way they want to do it is really important. Easiest thing with me is like, I have worked with coaches and stopped working with coaches on the fitness side because I identified more with being an athlete, wanted to build my athleticism. We were doing stuff that was more aligned with like being a bodybuilder. Again, same fitness coach, same thing. Zach's idea of what he wanted and like how he wanted it, coach's idea of what would help Zach and how he wanted it, 2 different things. And like, if you're not aligned on those 2 things, the person's going to leave, even if they're making really good progress, like was building muscle, was getting leaner, didn't feel like I was getting more athletic. Same thing, if somebody works with you to solve a business problem and they're really hell-bent on increasing their customer retention and you get them a ton of new leads, it could still help the business grow, but it's not doing the thing that they wanted it to do. So for your business, you need to identify what your outcome is. How does your customer perceive progress? And perceive is the big word there. They don't always have to be making like massive amounts of progress. They need to feel like they're moving in the right direction. So with this, the best way to do it is to identify a very clear outcome. So 1 job done well is better than 10 jobs at a mediocre level. So number 1, you need to track and measure for each customer, what is the progress they're making, and how can you benchmark these against metrics of progress to understand if they're moving in the right direction. Number 2, and I recommend all businesses do this, especially to start, scale your deliverables down to the smallest unit of value you can confidently deliver on. Like if it's just one metric or one thing, like we help you get more referrals, or we help you get faster, or I help you build muscle, that's all you need to focus on solving that one problem. And then the last is building trust. And Talkie Moore was the first one that I've heard talk about this. Well, he called it the 5 1s. So like 1 product, 1 outcome, 1 avatar, 1 price, 1 traffic channel. And until you've mastered those, don't move on to anything else. So with this, next part is going to be creating an unforgettable customer experience. So I think Gainsight, which is they were the first company to really like target customer success. Like customer success, which is like somebody achieving success with your business, is the experience plus the customer outcome. So part of value delivery is how the outcome is solved, not just the outcome itself. So if you solve the problem, you do so in an unsatisfactory way, there's a really good chance the customer is not going to remain with your business. So you want to create an experience on top of the outcome that really drives towards the outcome you're trying to use, but do so in a way that's differentiated and like great for everyone else. So last thing on the product, and this is something again, like I don't see enough people do, is get your customer an early win. So an early win with a new client can 2 to 3x their retention and their LTV. And this is going to differ person by person, but I want to kind of bring it back to perceived progress. So once you understand like why that person's coming into you, like what is their big pain and struggle, and how do you get them moving towards that as fast as possible? This is something where I think perception is big. It can be as easy as you delivering information or a secret or value on why they are where they are and how they're going to move towards that. So you even just laying out a clear plan is going to help them perceive progress towards the goal. And then the last is, how do you reduce time to value? So in that perceived progress realm, how do you take someone from coming into your business, understanding what they want, and then reducing that time they feel like they're making progress towards it? So that is product. Any questions there before we move on to promotion?
I feel like there's a whole section on churn you could put through, because I think a lot of us are very focused on like getting clients and sales and like getting that win, and the lifetime of the customer isn't something we've thought about, invested in, brand, all this sort of thing. So I feel like you could do an hour presentation on that. But if you were to look at some of that, what are you seeing? Like if you were to see in our community or some of the guys, what do you think could be done?
Yeah, so and like I agree. I think that product is my favorite thing to talk about. So we'll work on another course or something to do that. So I think when you go back to this is really kind of like the idea you're trying to keep in your mind. So you need to get product right in the sense that your product does what it's supposed to do in a very reliable way. We'll talk about it a bit in promotion, data-driven marketing, but you want to ensure that people are like getting the result. So I think like if you're a coach, the biggest metric that I track is what's called on track percentage. So for the clients that you have, how many of them are on track to hit their goals? Really easy way to measure this is just they're on track, they need attention, or they're at risk. You can either do this subjectively by saying like, hey, I'm working with 10 people, here are their 10 goals. This person's on track, this person needs attention, this person's at risk. It's going to give you a really good sense of one, who is an advocate for the business, so who can you ask for a referral? And then two, it's going to give you a good sense of if somebody needs attention or they're at risk, I would put them at high risk for churn. So you need to figure out why they're at risk, why they need attention, and how to get them back on track. I think that's the simplest thing a lot. Like if you do a one-on-one service business, that should be mandatory for all your clients. Once a week, go through them and just kind of like subjectively say, is John on track? Yes or no? Really easy way to look at this is like, what was their goal coming in? Where are they at now? Their goal coming in was like 10K MRR by end of June, and they're at 8K MRR, and it's June 25th. We have 7 days left. Could it happen? Yes, but I would bucket that as needs attention. If they're a fat loss client and their goal is to lose 20 pounds and they've gained 5 pounds, they're at risk, and you should probably figure out what's going on.
Brilliant and simple. Appreciate that.
Cool, no problem. Who else has questions on product? Good to go? Cool. So last is going to be promotion. And this, I ended up scrapping this right before we started. Will be entirely on data-driven marketing because I think the future belongs to data-driven businesses. I think if you get your product right in a way you're quantifying your outcome, you are doing yourself a disservice by not doing this. So if a business doesn't have the data to back up their claims, especially now, they fall into like one of two buckets. Like one, they either don't have the data because they haven't gotten people results. So they're saying that like, I can do this, but they haven't like produced anything of value. So like that's lying. Or number two, they don't collect because they're not organized. I think some people are a mix of both. I see a lot of people just not collecting this stuff. So they have no idea, one, where their own clients are at until like they get them the before and after pictures or get them the testimonials. Or number two is they're not organized in a way that you can sit down and rip this data and put it out on social media. Either way, you need to start gathering this in your business so you can show proof of work. Like this needs to be something that you're tracking. This needs to be something that's part of your coaching or business process, just like the on track percentage. So you can start to use data to one, get people better results, but two, use it to boost like the proof for your business and do all the marketing for you. I think if you have data, marketing becomes significantly easier and the sales process becomes that through line that we talked about. So I like to break it down to 4 things is that outcome we keep talking about. So like when you kind of like use data to market, 1, what is the outcome you deliver? 2, what is the magnitude of the result? So fat loss, real easy one. They lose 3 pounds. Did they lose 30 pounds? What time frame are we playing with? Number 3 is that time frame. So you can really expand or contract this in a way that makes sense for you to paint the story you're trying to paint. And then number 3 is confidence. So it kind of goes back to the on track percentage. What % of people reached this result and like what was the outcome? So when you have these numbers, you can break it down to something like this. There we go. 2 really clear examples of you have a fitness coaching business and the primary outcome is fat loss. So like 85% of our clients lose 20 pounds in the first 6 months of working with us. You have the 85%, that is your confidence interval. And that kind of says that like, hey, like 8.5 out of 10 people that work with us get this result. So like, if you're one of them, you'll be good. you could actually add something on top of this that say like 90% of people that are 80% compliant with what we say get X results. So you can start to mix and match this in a way that provides more truth and authority towards the people you're trying to market. You're a SaaS business for business growth, and our primary outcome is business growth. So like the average user gains 4.3 clients per month while using our platform. It's clear, it's straightforward, it's targeted. It says that if you sign up and you pay the money to do this, this is the value you're going to get in return. And there we go. So once you have the numbers, the next thing to do is combine these with stories. Numbers are super powerful in telling this, but if you want to build authority, credibility, and trust, it's really helpful to use this data and social proof in an inspiring and engaging way. So I think like if you can start to layer on how these things happened, what you did, where somebody was at emotionally when they started versus where they're at now, it just adds a lot more power and oomph to like what you're doing. So I'm going to break that down here. Some really easy ways you can present data right now with what you're doing: graphs, tables, before and afters, quotes, TLDR style lists of what you did. If you have limited results, like you just started, case study your own results. So if you're building a business, you should know exactly what to do, and you should look at your own results in a way you can tell that story. If you don't have this, go start a business in something else that you're comfortable with doing. Because if you can't articulate how to do something, you lack the credibility to get other people results. So either like figure that out and then start the business, or figure out another thing you can do to help other people with. So present these in a tactical and personal way. As I was saying, that like, what did you do? So like the steps with that, but also like what were the wins, lessons, thoughts, stories, etc. And then these don't have to be really big. Like you don't have to do like a 6-month transformation story. It could be as small as like, hey, worked with Max. Max is a client. Here's something we did to help his sleep over the past 3 weeks. So this is an app I'm working on to do exactly this, called like Codename Proof. And like how you can start to implement stuff like this into your content. So like 3 real easy ways would be graphs. So like weight versus moving average. Did this with a client, this is what happened. Progress pictures, great for coaches. If you're in a quant style business, quant style business as well, graphs, tables, stories, and then testimonials and screenshots. So like people talking about your business in a way that's valuable. So any questions before you close out? That was promotion. I know we were a bit over time.
No, you started later. So, and Josh, I don't think Josh minds waiting a little longer. So
Beautiful.
All good, brother. Yep.
Who's
Cool.
got questions?
Any questions on promotion and data-driven marketing?
It looks like John dropped a question in the chat.
Cool.
I just didn't want to keep hogging the conversation.
No, we love hearing your voice, John. Can you go a little deeper in tone next time?
So define hard to quantify stuff.
How do we quantify stuff that's hard to quantify?
I'm just thinking with some of the outcomes, like even looking at productivity, like if I'm working with someone around being more productive and or like some of the mental stuff, I don't really want to be using like full assessments and all these sorts of things. How do I quantify the improvement that they've had?
Yep. So I think I would look at that energy, focus, drive, 1 through 10. Like anytime that I want to do something subjective, 1 through 10 Likert scale seems to be the best, because it is entirely subjective. 10 is like you took the limitless pill. 1 is like you had the worst hangover of your life and you did nothing the next day. Like where on that spectrum are you as far as that? Number 2, if productivity is the goal, I would benchmark that around a behavior activity. So like for your daily to-do list, what percentage of that got complete? Or like how many actions were you completing over the course of a week? And then even further into that, how many hours of deep work were you able to like smash out today? And like that's something you can benchmark over time and start to graph of like, hey, we got into a point where like you went from like 45 minutes and can barely stay focused. You're consistently doing like 2 hours of deep work a day. That's meaningful stuff. Yeah. And then 3rd would be like take that and cross-reference that against the metric they really care about. Because like people only care about productivity in a sense of like how it helps them move them toward their goals. Like no, like it's why we're here. Like you're trying to apply productivity to a goal that you're after. So like, are they making progress towards that goal? Yes or no? And then if it's business related, I think MRR is like recurring revenue is a great North Star metric. If it's not, like taking something that like is meaningful to them and quantifying against that.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. A follow-up question, very quick one, hopefully,
Yeah,
is the system sometimes gets in the way of like the work. So you're doing the work, but then measuring can become like an overlay. And I imagine this is an area you've looked at a lot. How brief do you think you should keep the measuring and tracking progress stuff, and what sort of intervals should you use so that you're not overwhelming them with just your recording process?
So with Doxata, we use a 30-second survey every day. And it just measures 7 things, 1 to 10 scale. How are you doing? And we stack that with like the metrics they're normally doing. So if you can measure it in like less than a minute, I think that's great. And make the metric as simple, as robust as possible. It's why, like, for better or for worse, weight is such a popular one with fitness clients, because like it's telling of the outcome and it's also very easy to get. So yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you want something that like is robust enough to kind of like tell a bit of the story as it like trends up and down. Cool. Anyone else on promotion? And we'll close out. Sweet. So what should you prioritize next? Here's a quick little matrix on how to think about, we just covered a ton of stuff. Like I said, a lot of those could have been an entire slide in their own. And we can talk about them in future presentations, future stuff. But I think like if you're just looking at your business right now, if it's not growing, it's because of one of these core issues like focus, trust, value, awareness, and communication. So if you are not getting the stuff done that you want to do on a daily basis, you need to optimize your energy, your focus, and your drive. You need to figure out what you need to focus on and how to focus on the things for enough time to get them done. If people don't trust your company to get them results, so you're getting on sales calls and they're not closing, you need to show proof of work. And if that proof of work isn't valuable enough, you need to make your product better. If you have both of those things, so like you're crushing results and you have a valuable product, but people don't know about it, you need to spend your time marketing and promoting the product. And if you're marketing and promoting the product hard and it's not connecting, there's a really good chance that communication is actually the issue. We didn't touch on it at all today, but you need to ensure that what you're saying is relevant to the customer in a way they can easily understand. Again, could be an entire thing itself. You want to make sure that like your business and how you're positioning it is very relevant to the person you're trying to talk to. So TLDR for today: develop habits for sustained energy, focus, motivation towards your goals, build a great product that solves a specific outcome, and then communicate what you do and why you do it to build trust and authority with your audience. As we close out, use the business barbell to really grow your business. If you want to work together, send me a message on Instagram at Mobius. Or if you just have any questions, we covered a ton of stuff here, and I'm happy to answer more of them. And then Keegan and I are working on a $1 million model course. So if you want to be involved in that, shoot me a message on Telegram at Mobius, and we'll figure it out. Till next time, hit me up on Telegram, hit me on Instagram. I really appreciate the time today. I hope it was a valuable use of your time so you can move from where you're at towards your goals.
It's awesome, Zach.
Whoa.
I feel like I'm listening to a holographic version of Alex Hormozy, just a little bit stronger.
Appreciate the praise. Wow. I'm awaiting my 9-figure exit, but hopefully here in 3 to 4 years, we should be on the same field.
When's your book coming out? Are you writing a book?
All of this stuff will eventually probably be in a book here in like 3 or 4 years after we build up the SaaS companies. Until then, it's just presentations, talking to you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, that was wonderful. Unless anyone has any last questions for Zach.
I do.
Yeah,
go for it.
Hey, Zach, are y'all doing all of your data in-house, or do you outsource it? And what would you recommend for people who want to start to utilize data in their businesses?
So we do all our stuff in-house. I think one of the best things you can do is like build the product in a way that naturally collects data. I think where a lot of people go wrong is they're not thinking about this from the start. So with kind of what I talked about of like, what is your defined outcome and how are you measuring that? Start to build that out in a way where like you can easily track that with clients. So like if you were doing a like consulting business around something, I would have like those benchmark metrics you're tracking. And then for each of my clients week to week, we would just go over where they're at. That's going to be the easiest way. And then how you aggregate that, because like you could do survey data, you could do a ton of other stuff. just make it, like I talked about with John, like you want it robust enough to show that like the story, but not cumbersome enough that like it's so much to track that you stop tracking it. So like pick 3 to 4 things that are meaningful to you, start tracking those, and I would build out from there. You like, do you have an example of like what you're working on or like what business you're doing? And I can apply it to that.
Well, I'm actually helping my dad's. I do business development for his data science consulting.
Oh, cool.
So I was trying to learn more about how I can approach people and kind of get an introductory conversation about what they can do and how we can help.
Yep. So easiest way to do that, I would take like, so whoever you're approaching, like what are the things that you think they care about, and then ask them how they're measuring that. Like I talked about with John, like, do you know at any point in time, like how, like what percent of your clients are getting results? Do you know like how many results they're getting? And like the answer you're probably going to get from a lot of people is no. So I would sell that. And then the data-driven marketing piece we just talked about, I would sell data science in a way that is relevant to them and like generating insights that's going to grow their business, either from like identifying within their business what they can work on, or number 2, identifying how they can use the results they're getting and market and promote those. I think like data-driven marketing is going to be like the really big thing going forward, because like as AI gets bigger, as everything else gets bigger, and you're going to need more proof of work. If you can show that you're somebody who can like give people results and showcase those, I think you're in a good spot. So I think with you guys doing that, super unique opportunity to lean really hard into that. Sweet.
Cool. Let's close this